Welcome to the K-pop safe space. My name is Sky, and I'm so glad you are here. The K-pop safe space is a place where all K-pop fans can come together to exist exactly as they are. And today is part one of the ageism discussion episode. My guests today are four incredible, inspiring, and motivating women within our K-pop fandom. All four of these women are amazing friends and mutuals of mine. Steph, Kathy, or as I like to call her, Mama Moa, Quince, and my fellow Namjoon sister wife, Shels. Now, before we get into the introductions for our guests and the questions, I would like to discuss why I chose ageism as the first topic for the discussion series. Ageism is a topic that I think is really prominent in our K-pop fandom. I have seen the comment section saying, "You're too old, you're too emotional, why do you like K-pop at this age? It's creepy, it's weird, it's disgusting." And these comments are not only downright disrespectful, but they are so unneeded. We do not need to go about fandom this way. And our favorite idols would not like us treating other fans like this. Going back to a couple years before I created my Toxic K-pop fan series and my community, I saw the ageism and it really, really struck something within me. I just could not sit there on social media creating videos about just my passion and not talk about how these fans are being treated. And so I decided to be vocal about it. I decided to make videos starting about ageism, and that created a whole series, which was my Toxic K-pop fan series, and then my community, and now this podcast. Me talking about ageism and being vocal about ageism, the reason I met the majority of my K-pop friends and mutuals, just like Steph and Kathy and Quince and Shels, I have met the majority of them and others because I was talking about ageism. And the majority of them are powerful, beautiful women. And I'm so beyond, sorry, I'm getting a little emotional talking about this because I have such a deep respect for my friends, but I have very deep respect for them, and they are amazing and they are passionate, and it hurts me to think that anybody would ever say things like this to them, you know, dismiss their passions and make comments about them because they are women that have a love for something. Age is nothing but a number, and it does not dictate what we can and what we can't do. Now, let's get on with the episode. First, let's start with the introductions for our guests.
My name is Stephanie Miller, and I am 50, almost 6 years old. Sorry, my dog is panting in the background. Sorry. I'm almost 56 years old, and I helped start Army Project 529. Basically, I'm just a diehard BTS fan, BTS Army, who also happens to love to connect with other Army on social media.
Hi, I'm Kathy. I am 55 years old. My alt group is Tomorrow by Together, and my alt bias is Yeonjun. You can find me on TikTok at Kpop Standard, or just look me up by my username, Mama Moa and Profile.
Hey guys, Quince here. It's been a while since I've been making videos on the internet regularly, but you might still recognize me from Army Project 529 and our regular weekly live streams. I am one of the admins of AP 529, a BTS fan project and community created by Army for Army, specifically adult Army. Armies who often find themselves unwelcome in other fandom spaces on the internet.
Now, question number one and question number two were kind of similar, so I mushed them together. I asked, what got you into K-pop, and how old were you when you first discovered it?
it's interesting because I don't even know if I would say K-pop in general. I started K-drama fan, the rom-coms and all of that. And maybe I found them COVID time is when I first found them. So I was 50 then. And that sort of led me into, by accident, coming across Friendcation, in the suit Friendcation with the Wooga Squad. And then from that, I met V, and I was like, who is this V person? And what is this group that he's apparently a part of? And that got me down the rabbit hole. And I got so into BTS so fast that I didn't really have time to get into any other K-pop groups, because I got involved and started in the Army Project 529. And so all of my focus just sort of started being on BTS. I do listen to other songs and other groups, but I already have 7 boyfriends. I really just don't feel like I have a whole bunch of time for more at this point. Now, maybe once the comeback and stuff is done, that'll change. But for right now, these 7 have my hands full, plus the project. So BTS and the whole, just Korea in general, I got fascinated by the culture and the history. And my father and my brother had both been stationed in the military there for periods of time. So I kind of had it in my background a little bit. I knew a little bit about it, but my curiosity got piqued. And once I find an interest in something, I just go all in. I don't know how to contain myself.
I have been a K-pop fan since 2020, and I was 50 years old when I first discovered it. I never wanted to be a K-pop stan. After taking my son and a couple of his friends to Six Flags, and one of the girls was a major BTS J-Hope super stan, and the only thing this girl talked about the entire day was BTS, 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 J-Hope, BTS. I never wanted to hear those letters again. But on November 20th of 2020, I was in the car. I heard Dynamite on the radio, asked Siri who it was. She told me it was Dynamite by BTS. I ran to YouTube, found the video. I'm like, oh my God, these guys are gorgeous. And down the rabbit hole I went.
Early 2000s, Rain definitely made me a K-pop fan. I was into SHINee, that whole era. And how old was I? In my early 40s, late 30s. Well, this goes back to the late 80s when I met one of my best friends to this day. She was an exchange student from Japan. We're still friends now 40 years later, and she got me listening to a lot of J-pop and K-pop when we were in college, later college. We still share music now. So that's how I started.
I am currently 45 years old, and BTS is my alt group, but I am, gasp, a multi-stan. I have been a casual sort of in and out K-pop fan for around 8 years or so. So I guess I first discovered it when I was like 37-ish. But I didn't really dial in and become a true fan until 2022. 2022 was a crazy year for me. I had just gone through a bad breakup, a rough breakup, and I had moved to another state. I had moved back to my home state, and I was extremely depressed. Extremely. I spent a lot of time on YouTube when I wasn't doing anything that I absolutely had to be doing. I was probably kind of just wallowing and going down YouTube holes. I discovered both BTS and Stray Kids at the same time. Now, I had obviously heard of BTS before this point because they had blown up. By 2022, they had well blown up. But I had heard of them years prior, but I just never really it hadn't sunk in. But during this time, I rediscovered or really discovered them, if you want to say that, and Stray Kids at the same time. And it was through people reacting to them on YouTube. And suddenly I found myself enjoying something again, and it was exciting. and it was new music, and I hadn't been excited about music in a long time. New music anyway. I hadn't been excited about anything new I was hearing in a long time. And it also had an entire community attached to it, and like a sense of community. And like, it wasn't just music, it was like all kinds of media. There were videos to watch, there were interviews, there were variety shows, there was so much content. And it honestly, it gave me something to look forward to. It gave me a reason to keep going, honestly.
I think something that I related to and I really found interesting was when Steph and Kathy were talking about finding K-pop by accident, right? We don't initially go with that intention, but we do find K-pop. And I think that that is something that happens to a lot of us within the fandom. I'm also a very firm believer that K-pop finds us when we most need them in life and when it just is right. You know, Kathy talks about not really wanting to be a K-pop fan and, you know, seeing somebody who talked about BTS so much and it just made her not really want to be a fan. And I can kind of relate to that because truly, early years of high school, I knew about K-pop. I had friends who liked K-pop, and there was a period where I did dive into it. And like Shels, it was groups that were, from, first and second generation groups like Big Bang, Shiny, 21, Taemin, G-Dragon, these groups and artists that really did pique my interest, and I was listening to their music a lot, but it really only lasted a couple months. And there was this ignorance in me, right? There was a part of me that avoided it and just pushed it away. And it just wasn't the time for me. I mean, part of me regrets it because honestly, I could have been there for BTS's debut. But it wasn't the time for me to find BTS. And how Quince was talking about, K-pop, finding her in a place where it was kind of dark and unsure, and you're consumed by thoughts and feelings and how you're dealing with things in the moment. And I truly, truly relate to her talking about the content. There's so much content in K-pop, and those things kind of take that place for us. They give us something to enjoy, something to look forward to, something to smile about. And it doesn't just fully distract us from what's going on in our lives, but it gives us some joy in the time being while we are dealing with those things. Question number 3 is, have you ever experienced ageism in the K-pop community? And if so, what happened?
I think I'm just speaking from a little bit of a different perspective just because most of the hate that I got online for my age came with the project because most of us are 35 and over. However, interestingly enough, it was because I got such negative comments about a video I did. What was the video I did? I think it might have been August D concert when Suga got so emotional on stage. And then the very next day they announced he was leaving. And it was just like, oh my God. And I had somebody kind of come at me about, act your age. You're too emotional about this. This is ridiculous, blah, 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 blah. And so I did a reaction video to that. And from that, got hundreds of comments from people my age, if not older, who were like, I feel exactly how you feel. People come at me all the time. I'm judged all the time for loving BTS or other K-pop. And from that, I was like, well, maybe we should build a community. And it was originally just going to be, it was a Discord group that my friend Katie helped me start, who she's now part of admin for the project. And we started with a Discord, Army Nuna, I think is what we called it. And then from there, once the guys left for military, I was like, hey, would you want to do a book club? And then that kind of turned into the project. But so it had already started happening when just because I was putting myself out there on social media. Then when we started the project, and we were a group of women, that it really, the people were calling us hags and really being hateful in comments and stuff. We posted our video of our Kansas City meetup, and it got all kinds of negative things about people being horrified that women our age would be all getting together and doing, you know, this fandom together. So it has been constant since I got on social media, but even more so since I started the project. So anybody that says that ageism does not exist and we're all army and we all love each other is lying or doesn't understand because they've not had it come at them. I would say if you ask anybody my age or older, probably 45 and over especially, there are people that have given them hell for being a fan at this age. And it's just reality. Most army are fantastic, but there's definitely a group, whether it's army or whether other K-pop people, that just don't approve of. And I think there's this weird, I don't know if it's just this weird ageism thing where they think, you know, you hit a certain age, you just shouldn't enjoy life anymore. I don't know.
I personally have experienced ageism in the K-pop community, but honestly, it's only been on TikTok. Like, Teen Moa has tried to cancel me over a questionable Yeonjun edit after his Artist of the Month video. I get told all the time that I am too old for K-pop, but in real life, that's not really been the case.
As you know, Steph and I and Suzanne did In the Coop, and we did a whole topic about ageism. Definitely have experienced it. I've not been to a lot of K-pop concerts due to that. When I would go, I was looked upon as the mom who dropped somebody off to go to the concert instead of one that really appreciated the music that I was about to listen to. When I found AP 529, that I found other people my age group and younger and older that made me feel a lot more comfortable being in a concert setting. When I go shopping, if I'm in a K-pop store, I'm looked at again as somebody who's older, who's dropped their daughter off to go shopping. So I have experienced it that way.
Absolutely, I have. Our project, Army Project 529, is run by 6 women, including myself, who are all, I guess you could say, of a certain age. Our leadership team ranges from like late 30s to mid 50s. Our entire community is 18 plus. As I mentioned before, we are a community for adult Army. So we are 18 plus, but we welcome adults of any age. But quite naturally, we have attracted a lot of female followers within a similar age range to ourselves, and even a bit older. I would say some of our community skews a bit older than, like, say, my own age range. We have had several in-person meetings since we launched at the very beginning of 2024, including weekend getaways and also events surrounding K-pop concerts. We filmed a lot of the events and things that we've done and stuff for the community, and we've put videos and we've put pictures online. We've found people screenshotting our material, our content, our live streams, our content from our getaways, our meetups, and sharing them online with the express intent to insult us and to insult older Army in general. We've been called old. We've been called grandmas. I don't even have kids. We've been called grandmas. We've been called, we've had our, obviously we've had our looks disparaged. We've been called fat and ugly. We've even been called hags. And we found that particularly amusing. And we have actually reclaimed that word a bit, for better or for worse. And we even made some merch with the word hag on it, in Hangul. You have to laugh at it instead of letting it consume you. And I mean, that's not the only thing. Obviously, we get comments on our videos all the time, DMs. Aren't you a little old for this? Like, shouldn't you be playing with your grandkids? Like, why aren't you knitting or crocheting? Like, I can't believe you're into BTS at your age. This is creepy. All kinds of things. So it's a constant. It's a constant.
Some really great things were mentioned, and I want to go into, what Steph was saying. She was mentioning certain phrases like, people saying things like, act your age, you're too emotional. Something that I really think about all the time when I hear phrases like that, especially go act your age. What does that mean? What does go act your age mean, right? Age is nothing but a number. And why is that something that defines what we can do, what we can't do? Just me expressing my love for, K-pop in general, and people, someone called me Jurassic. They said, "Oh, you're doing this at your Jurassic age?" And I'm like, the majority of K-pop idols and BTS are older than me. And you are calling me old. Do you realize that by calling me old, you are also calling the majority of K-pop idols old? And I don't think that they realize that. And commenting on the phrase, you're too emotional. I mean, I personally dealt with things where, BTS was going into the military. That was something that affected a lot of ARMY. And a lot of ARMY was very emotional about it. They said that I was too emotional about it, that it should be easy for me because they have gone through many idols going through their military enlistment and they had an easy time with it. So I should have an easy time with it and that I shouldn't be upset or sad or have any feelings. Of course, we're going to be emotional about it. Of course, it's going to be hard for us. That's valid and that's okay. We're not too emotional. We're humans and we're supposed to have feelings. With the Army Project 529, I have seen some of the situations, some of the negativity that you guys have experienced. And I truly think the reason, the root of it is the impact that you all have. And this goes for everyone who has contributed to the project, who works on the project. I know it's hard to block out the noise and the hate that comes with it, but I want you to be so proud, all of you that have contributed to it, because you guys have created these events, these meetups. Look at you guys have created the Mosity map where Army can find other Army that live by them, that are local, and they don't have to go through this alone. And that is so empowering. That is so powerful. And they may not have had that before. They may have been stuck in their city or their town and not known that there were other army there. And you guys are the reason for that. And that is amazing. Women are powerful. And they make fan projects, they make communities, they create the majority of fandom. They are not every single fan out there, but they do create a lot of the power in fandom. So be very proud of who you are and just know that the noise and the things that they say are not true. Shels mentions that, fans, they're not just mothers, they're not just grandmothers, they're not just people that are chaperoning someone to go to a K-pop store, a K-pop event. They are women, they are men, they are non-binary fans who can be of any age. And the fact that that's just not simply viewed and it's thought of, oh, well, they're just chaperoning someone. They're just here because, whatever. It's such an ignorant view. Like, why can't older fans be a part of something that younger fans are? And you have senior fans that I see that are, in their 70s and 80s and maybe even older that are at these concerts. I mean, we have seen older couples at these concerts waving army bombs and smiling, and it's beautiful. It truly, truly is. So it's just not the fact. It's not the truth. Older fans can experience the same joy. Kathy, you bring something very important to the conversation when you're talking about edits. He is making edits of idols these days, and the majority of them are they're about their looks or them being attractive, right? There's nothing inherently wrong about it. An adult fan talking about an adult idol looking good or attractive, there's nothing wrong with that. And you want to know why there's nothing wrong with that? Because A, we're not blind. If someone is attractive, we say that. But these idols that us adult fans are talking about are adults. They are adults. Nothing truly wrong with that. As long as we are being respectful, we are not saying anything we shouldn't about idols that we shouldn't, then there is nothing wrong with that. Question number 4 is, do you feel that adult K-pop fans are treated differently than younger K-pop fans? And if so, in what ways?
Yeah, I think that I think it's just a cultural thing, and especially in America, where as you age, your value does not increase, it decreases in terms of other people a lot of times. And I think they do. I think they think you should just go off in a corner and just go knit, which is a great hobby, by the way, but just have just not enjoy anything anymore. Maybe they think that you can't enjoy things, or, I mean, I'm 56 years old. Hopefully I still have a good 30 years left in me. So for me to just to kind of go off and not partake in things anymore is ridiculous. But I think it's just the ignorance of being, and I'm not saying these people are idiots or anything, but it is that ignorance of not understanding time. And you don't fully grasp something until you get to that stage of life. And I didn't understand being 56 until I was, 56 almost. So I get it. People think it's weird. And I think that young people just get creeped out sometimes, maybe by this idea that you can be 56 and think these guys are handsome. And I just don't think there's anything weird about it, but so I think if you're younger, it's more acceptable to fangirl. I think the other thing that kind of drives some people crazy that upsets younger people is a lot of time it's your older fans that have the disposable income to spend on merch and concerts and travel and all those things. And so I think that kind of can cause some friction.
I think maybe adult K-pop stans are treated a little differently. I know personally I have gone to concerts and I've been standing around a crowd of people where freebies were given out and they would be handed to everybody but me, and I can only assume that's because I'm older. But I've never been harassed at a concert. I'm pretty sure at Hypen I was the oldest person there that didn't have a younger person with them, chaperoning them, and I've had no issues other than that.
Absolutely. And the reasons that I just said. Actually, a lot of people that have gotten into K-pop in the last, say, 8 to 10 years definitely look at older people as if they don't know anything about the new groups. What could they possibly know about new groups such as 17 or Cordis, or because we're considered old school if we were into K-pop previous decades?
100%. Older K-pop fans, primarily women, we're judged on everything from our looks to our motivations for wanting to be part of fandom at our age. We're often told that we're too old and that K-pop isn't for us. Like I said before, it's cringe and gross that we get excited over it, and we should be doing more age-appropriate things.
I truly agree. I think that it is ingrained in our society and in people's thoughts. There is an ignorance there. They are viewed as just their age. There's a sense that all your passions and your thoughts and your feelings just dim away with your age, and that they don't have those same thoughts and feelings and passions that they did when they were younger. And that's just simply not true. And Shels mentioned something, and I think I forgot to mention it before, but she said that she didn't really go to K-pop concerts because of ageism, and I'm sad to hear that. That's very unfortunate. It shouldn't be the case, but it makes me think about those older fans who would love to be a part of fandom or would love to listen to K-pop, but maybe they don't. They stay clear about it because they don't want the negative opinions. They don't want maybe family members who wouldn't accept it, or think it's weird, or maybe it's their place of work, right? It stops people from expressing that joy because they are in fear that they are going to get ridiculed for it, and it's just horrible. And another thing Steph mentions, and she says that it's the money and the disposable income. And I think that truly is a part of ageism within our fandom. And Shels also mentions that, the thought that older fans or fans that may have been fans of, first, second generation would not know anything about newer groups. There is also a way that, adult fans can be respectful towards younger groups. And I know that when I have made videos about ageism, I have made skits, right, where I'm talking about ageism and how it's wrong. I always get a comment from at least someone who says, yeah, but adult fans, they're creepy and they're weird and they're inappropriate towards younger idols and this and this and that. That is wrong. That is something that should never ever happen. And younger idols should never have to experience that. That isn't all adult K-pop fans. Can't encompass the whole entirety of adult K-pop fans with that same mindset or thought, right? I'm not saying it's right. I don't stand for it. But you can't paint the entirety of adult fans as being inappropriate because some choose to act in ways that they shouldn't. Question number 5 is, do you think ageism is just about age, or do you think it's about controlling who can express passion?
People just love to try to contain and control other people, especially if they can't comprehend it in their head themselves. And I think aging scares a lot of people, and so they try to push it away. And I think it freaks them out to maybe see people, at a concert that have, gray hair or whatever. I think it's a them issue. And since they don't want to think about it, they don't want to think about aging and what that all means, they certainly don't want to witness it in real time.
Honestly, I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, I know when I was a teenager, I think if my mom liked Duran Duran the way I like Duran Duran, I would think that was so cringe and gross. But I would never harass anybody about it. But it's probably also a bit of trying to control the passion because, oh my God, what do you mean you're old and you like JK? He would never go for you. And my response is like, I know that, but he also wouldn't catch a felony with me. So, like I said, it's kind of both.
I think this question goes beyond just K-pop. I think younger people, now that I'm approaching 60, feel that the older generation don't understand them. Regardless, the people that are in my age bracket have definitely had a lot more experience than K-pop fans in their 20s and 30s. We definitely have seen a lot more. We've grown through it. Just from my being in Army for 10 years and being a fan a couple years after they debuted and everything that we went through, being a fan, nobody was, they were giving them a hard time. They were not understanding BTS's message. So after being in the roots of it and then seeing where they are now, especially the concert today with their comeback, it was full circle. It was just like I was there 10 years ago and enjoying seeing them for the first time. And I know there's a lot of new ARMY that have just experienced seeing them for the first time today, and I think that's amazing.
This is a great question. I think it's both. And I don't want to get too far up on my soapbox here, but when we're younger, like in our 20s, a lot of you watching may be in your 20s now, so just go with me on this. When we're younger, in our teens and our 20s, we think that we know everything. And I don't say that in an insulting way. It's just that young adulthood brings a sense of hubris and invincibility with it that makes us think, yeah, I've got it all figured out. And that typically only fades as we continue to age and realize that, oh crap, I was an idiot, actually. There's so much more to life. But when we are that young, it feels like forever. The world seems to exist for youth, and society backs this up. The majority of mainstream entertainment and advertising is geared toward young adults, the demographic that is deemed to be going out and enjoying life. Society isn't built for the truth that adults, especially women, remain vital far longer past the age than when we can first rent a car. K-pop fans come in all shapes, ages, genders, but the bulk of fandoms, we can agree, are female driven. Women and the things that they enjoy are not taken as seriously. And especially as we get older, women are supposed to fade into the background. Typically, when you get married and you have kids, and that's a woman's job. Obviously, outwardly, society doesn't think this anymore, but deeply ingrained, a woman gets married, she has kids, and when she's done raising those kids, her job is over, and now she can just fade into the background. And that is still sort of how women aging is viewed. It seems like once you get past 40, you're not supposed to be excited by anything anymore. You're not supposed to be having fun, going out, partying, going to concerts, enjoying music from groups who might be a little younger than you. All of these things that get policed, it comes from that deeply ingrained societal belief that women should not be enjoying things past a certain age.
I think aging does scare people. It does. And I think it also scares people because the majority of fans that do this and participate in ageism, I think, have this thought process and this mindset that when they reach a certain age, they are going to forget about K-pop. They aren't going to like it anymore, that it's going to dim with age and they're going to lose interest in it. And I mean, that may be true for some people, but it isn't the case. I can tell you, and I know that I'm never going to stop with K-pop. It's going to be with me forever. And that's the case for the majority of fans. And I think the impact of K-pop and how it impacts people and the joy and everything that it does bring to people's lives, I don't think people really grasp that. Now, Kathy, you also brought up something very interesting and important, and it's this phrase that I've heard a lot in the community, and it's that, oh, well, that idol would never go for you. This idea of, oh, this idol will never go for you, that is not why we are into K-pop. And like I said before, commenting on Steph's thing, I think that ignorance of not understanding that we love K-pop for the talent, for the idols as humans, for what they contribute and they give to our lives, the joy that they bring us, all these different things, the impact that they have in our lives, and just who they are as humans, right? That's why we love them, not for their looks, not because we think one day we are going to end up with them. So when people say this, like, oh, that idol's not going to end up with you, I'm like, that's not even my motivation. That was never our goal. We know that we're not going to end up with them. We know. Do you? That's the question. Another thing that I'd like to touch on is Quince. And Quince was talking about, being a younger adult in your early 20s and such. And I can truly relate to this because I think it's true for me. I'm approaching my 30s this year. I'm turning 30 in December. And I can say somebody who I thought I knew everything. I truly, truly did. In my early 20s, and well, for me, at least this is in my case, but I got to like the age of like 27, and I was like, oh shit, I don't have this all figured out. I don't know a lot actually, and I have so much more to experience. And I think one of the big reasons for that was watching um, people that are older than me on social media and listening to them and their wisdom and their thoughts. She talks about, women fading into the background, right? And society's view of women and what they're supposed to look like and what they're supposed to do with their lives. Women in fandom, and not just fandom but in general, right, doing things that are powerful creating communities, creating fan projects, creating things like you guys did with Army Project 529 and all these different things. I think that that is something that pushes out of that norm, right? And it goes against those societal views, right? And so that's when it's met with this negativity, because it's like, oh, you can't do this. Women aren't supposed to be powerful. Women aren't supposed to do this. And that's just simply not the case. Women have a lot of beautiful things to say, and they should be listened to and they should be amplified. And if anybody wants to do anything, regardless of your gender, but women, if they have a passion or something they want to do, they should do it with their whole heart. And I think the power of women and women doing things that they enjoy and that have change or impact is very scary to some. I guess they're just going to have to deal with it because women are amazing. Question number 6 is, what is the biggest misconception that you've heard about adult K-pop fans?
That we're like creepers, that that it's gross. For me, these guys are almost 30 years old. I am not one of those fans that like hypersexualizes them or anything like that. That's just not my vibe. It never has been about anything at any age. I can appreciate obviously that they are beautiful human beings. But I don't necessarily have, I don't take issue with other people and how they choose to do fandom or how they see other people. That's just not my thing. But I think that's kind of what it is. I think they see it as more of the creeper thing. Oh, they're too old. That's gross. Because they're just looking at it from a very narrow perspective of why you would love these 7 guys. For me, sure, they're attractive. Of course they are. But it's so much. They're very talented. They are amazing human beings who set wonderful examples about many parts of life. And I love them as people, not as faces or, that kind of thing. I love them as people. And I think that part gets ignored.
I think the biggest misconception that I've personally heard is that all adult K-pop fans are just lecherous women that have nothing better to do with their time than wait till the minor idols turn 18 so we can sexualize them. And while there are the minority out there that are like that, the majority of us are not. I have a very healthy fear and respect for minor idols because I know, like, my son was 18 when he was still in high school, and if any of my friends had said to me, oh, well, your son's kind of hot, I would have decked them, and that's how I look at very young idols. No.
Misconception, I would think, ties into the ageism. A lot of people that I have met through K-pop are so different, meaning culture, language, but the one thing that brings us all together is the music.
Probably just that we're all gross, lecherous predators. We're not interested in the music. We're only interested in ogling attractive people younger than ourselves, which is ridiculous. I mean, just because you reach the age 40 and beyond, it doesn't mean that you go blind. We can still see when people are attractive. Obviously, it's not the end all be all of why we are interested in K-pop at all. It starts primarily with the music.
I think a thought that is very unanimous and we all think is that, these thoughts and these comments that older K-pop fans are creepy or weird or disgusting, and the motivation behind adult K-pop fans or older K-pop fans wanting to be a part of K-pop fandom. Why is it always that it's a negative thing, right? It's never the impact, it's never the joy. It's always, oh, they're being creepy, they're being weird, they're doing it because they want this and they want that. That's negative and inappropriate. And that is not the case. It isn't. It's simply just not true. And yes, there are those fans that do engage in those inappropriate ways. That isn't the case for the majority of the K-pop fandom that is adults. And just those phrases, creepy, weird, gross, disgusting, it just boggles my mind that people use that kind of language about someone, about somebody else having a passion or joy about something. And Shels mentioned something very, very important, is that K-pop and K-pop fans are diverse, right? There's not just one gender, there's not just one look, there's not just one culture, right? There's not just one language, or it's not just from one part of the world, but K-pop is global and it is diverse. And one of the most beautiful things is when we come together and when music brings us together and we break those barriers of language or whatever, right? And we come together. And I think that is a beautiful topic, because it's one of the reasons that I've created this podcast, is the beauty when we come together for positive change, and we make a difference in our community, when we do concerts and fan projects and all those different things. That is the power of K-pop, and that's what it is at the end of the day. It's not the negativity, it's not all these opinions. It is us coming together despite our differences, and but it's us coming together for positive change, and doing things like this. And that is part one of the Ageism K-pop Safe Space discussion episode. I want to thank all my guests, Stef, Kathy, Shels, and Quince. Thank you so much for being a part of the ageism discussion episode. And part two will be coming out in 2 weeks' time. I will have a teaser on social media so that you can stay updated. If you have experienced ageism or you have thoughts about ageism, please share your story to be featured in a future K-pop Safe Space episode. The link to the Google form is in the description of this video. I would love for you to share your story or thoughts with me. And if you are an adult K-pop fan who experiences ageism, or you are a secret or casual fan and you don't want to get too involved because you're scared of the judgment or the comments that you might get for being a adult K-pop fan, just know that your passion is valid. That age is just a number, and it's not something that defines what you can love or be passionate about. And that you belong here in the K-pop safe space. That this is a space for you to exist exactly as you are. This is my space, your space, our space. This is the K-pop safe space.